Yay, glad you're here. For those new to the community, AI Realize is a community of enterprise executives who are actively deploying AI in their organizations. It's founded by Christina Elwood. And Christina, super thank you for bringing this group together. So today, we're going to dig into one of the most consequential shifts in marketing and communications right now, which, otherwise, why would you be here? It's GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. We're going to talk about what it is, where it fits alongside SEO and AEO, and most importantly, what is actually working in the real world. We have 3 practitioners with very different vantage points, and we're going to make you walk away with something that you can use. So let's introduce our panelists. First, Jennifer Devine. She's founder and managing editor of Freshwater Creative. Give it up! So Jennifer, GEO and SEO strategist, and she's truthfully been a close partner of mine for nearly 5 years. She works across a range of companies and industries, which gives her a rare landscape view of what is working and what is not. And Jennifer, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Excited to have the conversation with everybody today.
Okay, next, Mike Nielsen. He is the CMO of RealSense, an AI robotics company with a story that's almost tailor-made for this conversation. His company was declared dead by a major AI platform, ChatGPT, before it had even launched out from Intel. Rather than wait for an algorithmic catch-up, Mike and his team went to work, and RealSense came back from the dead. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited to talk to you today.
Thanks, guys. That is not an intro I expected. Thanks for.
We're trying to keep this fun. And last but not least, Micheline Nijmeh is the Chief Marketing Officer at ThoughtSpot, an AI-powered analytics platform that lets everyone in a company, from a data analyst to a CEO, ask questions of their business data in plain language and get answers and next steps in seconds. Micheline has led ThoughtSpot's GEO program over the past several quarters, and the results have been, I'd say they've been striking. Micheline, glad you are here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we're all here. So let's set the stage. Jennifer, lots of terminology here, AEO, GEO, SEO. I bet you've been surprised by both how savvy people are and also how totally out of touch and clueless they are. Could you just kind of give us a scene setter, like everything you wanted to know about GEO, but were afraid to ask?
Sure. The language is evolving and shifting. I think we've landed really on GEO and AEO and slight differences between the two. But really, this is looking at how the AI platforms are being used in research, changing behaviors. Whereas we used to have, one behemoth with Google search engine. That was what really used to matter when you wanted to show up online for general searches and targeting and looking at strategy there. Now we have a plethora of platforms across the board. And GEO focuses on the tasks and items that you need to be taking into consideration to ensure you're showing up within those platforms, but also within the AI overviews that are right in browser these days. So looking at the tasks, the recommendations, the technical structures, the type of content, those sorts of things is really what we've been focusing on over the past year to help our clients shift from maybe an SEO digital marketing focus into a broader GEO AEO focus.
Okay, so there will be a test later, but right now I want to go to Mike. Mike, before there was even GEO, before there was any sort of talk about this, you guys were kind of like ground zero for this. And I kind of want you to walk us through and just like, how did you know something was off? And what were the steps to understanding what had happened? And then when was the realization, oh my God, this has happened?
2021 was the fateful year, which just all kind of went sideways for us. We were still part of Intel, so there's a bit of a history lesson here. RealSense was part of Intel for a very long time, developed some really cool tech. In 2021, a strategic pivot happened in the business unit where we decided to move and focus on robotics, which was the right move to make because that's where we are today. It's what we're doing. It's phenomenal. However, that was misinterpreted by somebody in the media as we are shutting down RealSense. We are shutting down a product line became we are shutting down the business unit. And unfortunately, due to various machinations inside the company, that was never corrected. So as a result, one key article written by an individual reporter at one outlet became the top search hit that everybody got to. So this is before GEO, right? So SEO, this became, and I'll name it, it was CRN. Now that particular author wrote a phenomenal article about us when we exited. So I want to level set that and balance the universe energy back out here. That set the stage for us being out of business as far as the industry was concerned. For the longest time, we're fielding questions. We were never able to go back out and correct the record. And that is big learning number one. Unless you're able to get the organic coverage, you will never overrun previous organic coverage in any other way. And because it was a huge article, big noise, all companies were upset about it because they use us, they depend on us, they rely on us. So fast forward to exit time. So we're working on the exit plan, July 11th, 2025. It's been almost 4 years at that point. The news, we had just started to kind of take the covers off of what we're doing. People are starting to hear about it. We're still hearing a lot of, oh, I thought you guys were dead, which was enormously frustrating. Every time we talk to a customer, same story.
Hang on a second. Let's talk about I heard you were dead, because that's not a sentence that people say unless they're out of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Could you kind of set the setting here about how that happened, where that happened, and what that kind of absurd conversation was like?
It was surreal. We were talking to a customer that we know is using our technology, but because they'd read an article that pops up when they search for the word RealSense a year ago, the top hit was RealSense is shut down by Intel. And then fast forward, that's why it was so strange. You talk to a customer, they knew they were in business, and you're hearing for the first time from them that they thought you weren't. And it was very, very frustrating. So, we get back to last year, we launched, we'll get into that later on, but the organic coverage in that launch then allowed us to kind of override what was going on in the general SEO. But what became also apparent at that point was that GEO wasn't picking it up beforehand. So GEO was also saying, Intel RealSense out of business since 2021. And we're like, oh my God, I'm reliving a nightmare. So with that organic coverage and a bunch of other stuff we can talk about later, then that started to change. We've been very deliberate in the approach. And now we're top of rankings for GEO and SEO. We're still working through some of the GEO things on misnaming Intel versus Intel RealSense versus RealSense. But it's been a journey. I say now that I feel a lot more comfortable with it. It's taken some tricks, some of which felt kind of dirty, but they're tricks and they worked. But I can talk about those later on.
And last question in this tiny little bit before we get to Micheline. Were you ever tempted to give Sam Altman a call and say, what's up?
Oh God, we're looking for every possible way in. We're like, everybody in the company needs to put in 6,000 inquiries a day, write a bot to do it, to talk about RealSense. Like, guys, that's not how GEO works. It's not going to take your inputs and turn that into a GEO output. You're not going to rise in the rankings that way. It's getting the information from independent sources. But yeah, we wanted to call Sam. It was nuts.
Micheline, ThoughtSpot trailing its competitors and AI search visibility. Within a few quarters of launching a dedicated GEO program, you were able to turn things around. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, when we first started, we started to see a decline in our SEO ranking and traffic, obviously. And the team was trying to figure out this GEO thing at the time and did not really know how to go about it besides, dabbling here and there. So when the team got really focused, they looked at tools, they looked at how they just needed to really understand kind of the rethinking the mindset versus instead of just thinking about ranking as a priority like we do in SEO, it's more about influencing the answer and getting it cited by AI. And so once that mind shift changed, then everything else started to come together, right? So, we started to approach our strategy completely different. We wanted to focus on discovery and citation and being quoted. We looked at the way we wrote content. It wasn't about long form content like it was in the past. It was more about the way we did Q&A, glossary building. There was several things that we had to look at. And at the end, we were very excited to see the ranking, and we saw quarter over quarter trend, which was very nice. We went from almost like 2,500 AI-driven traffic to 17,000 monthly, and that was just initially. So we were very excited to see these monthly sessions improve about 6x times throughout the quarter, and continue to work with our team and the way we focused with the tool we used, and just the whole marketing team started to think differently.
Micheline, if you could, as Cher says, turn back time, what would you have done differently?
You mean before we changed our approach?
How would you handle the whole thing?
I think, it's just the mindset. I think start with the team. Start with, I have a tremendous team too, so I'm lucky to have them. But start with the team. Start the way that they think about it, and lean in. And so that's the one thing I would change from the very beginning. If I thought about this from day one, and truly understand time, right? Take the time to not be frustrated, and take the moment to start thinking about, okay, what's the content strategy as it becomes less of an importance as much as visibility strategy. So backlinking, thinking about how we think about it all together. So that's the only thing I would change, is probably the mindset to start.
And the tools that you've used to help, right the ship here, how would you describe, that sort of interface, between the division of labor, between what the tool did and what your team had to own?
Yeah, the team first looked at what was the best one, and we worked with a tool called Profound. So it's for us, it was really game changing. Definitely recommend it. And it helped us really identify just kind of the mindset on how we want to approach it. We restructured the team a little bit. So instead of just having kind of an SEO content writing team, we looked at how we built the team. We started adding in kind of content engineering. So we also bought a tool called AirOps, which we absolutely love, which helps us write content at a very efficient speed. So between those two tools and the team, and it's a small team, it's not a very big team, they were able to really get that efficiency very quickly. And then we partnered with they partnered with the expanded marketing team. So PR played a big role in backlinks, and our presence on the areas like Reddit played a big influence on the results.
Now, Jennifer, you have played with nearly every tool out there, including Profound. What are your thoughts about this? And, just kind of widening out the aperture, if you will, for someone who's starting from scratch, what does a foundational GEO strategy actually look like?
Right. Well, that's a lot. I'll cover what I can. How much time do we have? So there are some core tools that can be used. I think the really interesting piece about GEO and AEO world is that unlike SEO, where Google played nicely, they had tools that they shared data with. They had, so you could get at some insight and traceability of what was actually happening. The AI platforms aren't sharing that same data. So a lot of the platforms that are being used to measure are reverse engineering or backing into the information and the insights that they're providing. They're very good tools, and from Profound, which and Evertune, even SEMrush, who is traditionally a very large player in the SEO world, is developing some very powerful AI, AEO, GEO tools and tracking within that platform. The problem being is that you can't just use the one. You have to still be sort of looking at a set of tools across the board to get the deep insights, simply because we just can't tap into data. ChatGPT, Claude, they don't share the prompts. They don't share the results that are coming back. So really, Micheline's team is probably taking those insights that they're getting for Profound, humanly looking through and assessing and seeing where they're seeing the biggest impact, and then implementing a lot of those actions themselves based on their expertise and knowledge, and how they're applying what they've learned over the time of working within the GEO space. I would say overall, and Micheline talked about this a little bit, and Mike touched on it as well, very much a cross-functional, multifaceted approach needs to be taken in GEOs. So you are very much, like Micheline said, influencing the answers, whereas in SEO you were showing up exactly how you expected to be showing up. So as long as you got indexed and ranked, your page title, your page description, exactly how you wanted it to show up would be showing up. In GEO, it's not that way. You are influencing the answers. You want to be included. So it's very much about credibility, authority, like Micheline was saying, having the great content, structuring it in a way that is easily accessible, and making sure that it's available across multiple outlets and multiple places. So your website, but also, like Micheline was saying, I keep referring back because you're doing so many things exactly right. The PR media perspective of it, when you're looking at that authority, yes, they have a source, but the platforms want to double check. They want to have confidence in what they're bringing back in. So having a presence in high authority outlets, making sure that your content is structured in an answer and question way, so that in AEO, when it is showing up, being the answer at the top of the responses, technical aspect, content aspect, marketing, and really across the board, you're touching so many teams and pulling them in to execute this properly and get results.
Now, let's talk about the diet of AI. AI chews on things differently, and depending whether it's DeepSeek or Mistral or Claude or anything else, they prioritize things differently. Now, we all know that AI prioritizes earned media. That's the media that PR people have, and that's part of the reason why this is such of an interest to us. But could you just talk about how you've seen different AI platforms prioritize their different quote unquote media diets?
Me?
You.
Yeah, me. Okay. So Mike touched on something really interesting when he told the history of how this problem that was likely felt to be put behind them, especially in the traditional SEO world, kind of resurfaced in these new tools. There was that one piece of coverage. The problem on the GEO side was that it caused a lot of tittering and messaging and confusion and concern on platforms like Reddit. So the user generated content, which these platforms heavily rely on, it's shifting. Shifting quickly and changing as different contracts and agreements are put in place. But we have seen that many of the platforms have traditionally is a funny word to use in context here, but traditionally sourced heavily from Reddit, Wikipedia, user-generated content platforms. And that was where the problem, RealSense problem needed to be solved. Like, how do we correct this amount of content that's been pulled into the core learning data that was incorrect because of the concern and the conversations that were going within the development community that was using RealSense cameras at the time. So certain platforms have different flavors and preferences that they have. We have noted that, and you kind of have to know the backstory of the different platforms, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot. they're sourcing social media, for example, but they have different preferences for what social media platforms they're going to be using. So, of course, Copilot, LinkedIn, OpenAI is friendly with Microsoft. LinkedIn is going to have a higher influence. Claude, for example, is more heavily weighted to academic papers, white papers, case studies, those sorts of things. Really knowing those preferences across the board are going to help inform what you need to be doing to influence the results or the responses that are coming back within those platforms. You'll get some insight from that from the different measurement tools, but also really going in and looking at and assessing what kind of responses you're getting back from the core queries that you want to make sure that you're showing up for as well.
By the way, everyone, if you're wondering, hey, is this my time to ask a question? Yes, it is. Please ask a question in the little portal, and we will get to it as soon as possible. But I want to go now to Micheline, and let's just talk budget. A lot of people are being asked to allocate budget against GEO without a clear model for how to think about it. Is this incremental spending on top of existing SEO and PR budgets, or does it require thinking about how the whole kind of pie is divided?
It is, in comparison, it's not that much budget, to be honest. It's, sorry?
I oohed.
Oh, yeah, it's not that much. It's not that much in comparison to the ROI that you see. It's definitely worth it. And we're talking about a couple of tools. We didn't really invest in too many tools into what Jennifer was saying in terms of the manual data kind of exploration. We were lucky that ThoughtSpot does our data insights and gives us that information. So we're able to see the results and take action on that. So that was kind of a nice added component. But really, we're using a couple of new tools that is allowing us to get the results. And my team is not very big. I have one person who's really dedicated on SEO, GEO, and then we have one writer that's dedicated for that. And then we have the broader marketing team, of course, who, from the PR side, from, the digital side, the campaigns team, they all play a big part of that. So really, from a budget standpoint, it's not that much. It's just really restructuring the approach and thinking of how we should show up and be cited. We want to be the ones that are going to be quoted, and that's like golden for us when we're showing up. And we started to see our AI overview be above even our competitors, which was a huge win for our team. And I think it's just a race, right? It's like who gets there first, and then how do we keep maintaining it?
And let's go to Mike now. Mike, one of the things that you and I have talked about has been how important stories about RealSense have been in the media. Could you just talk about that process and what it's been like for you?
Yeah, so the organic coverage has been critical. I mean, I agree with everything that's been stated, by the way. Wikipedia, that's one of the tricks I'd love to talk about later because it's really kind of funny. Reddit, absolutely. YouTube, absolutely. And then the different engines weight things differently. Like some YouTube content will be crawled specifically by Gemini and maybe Perplexity, but not by ChatGPT and not by Anthropic. It's a whole weird mix in there, right? But organic coverage has been critical. And that was it was priority number 1, 2, and 3 coming out the door when we shifted from being part of Intel to independent. So as we built that out, and you guys obviously know, our coverage was pretty extraordinary coming out of the company, and that was like a light switch. It just completely flipped the narrative to where we no longer had to fight with the public about our existence, but we were still pushing through on the GEO side. It helped get us back into the mix. It took for about 2 months, a second order of prompting. So for example, if I went and said, list out all of the depth camera business companies in the world, for a bit, we wouldn't pop up. Then after exit, we'd start to pop up, and then I'd say, what about RealSense? And it would say, you're absolutely correct. So it took a minute for it to finally get reconciled through the system. And again, I think a part of that was, obviously the biggest part was the earned media coverage, but a big part was in the Wikipedia tricks we had to pull. The YouTube stuff, I think, has been very interesting because, again, not directly indexed, but searchable in some ways, and then kind of indirectly indexed. And then and then crawled as a result. And then LinkedIn's been critical as well for very different reasons, because of the largely around the newsletter content generation, not less so about the individual posts. So it's a big mix, and I wish I could say that it was completely 100% rationalized. We're still kind of scrappy, honestly. We use every tool differently, but it's all part of a continuum. It's all really important.
Okay. Now let me just ask ChatGPT a question, if you don't mind. ChatGPT, why'd you screw up? Why'd you mess up? ChatGPT has an answer. What happened to RealSense is exactly why your GEO work matters. AI didn't just miss the story, it actively wrote the wrong one. And that false narrative showed up in buyer conversations. I thought you were dead. They didn't make that voice, but that is indeed what they are saying right now. That's not a PR problem. That's a distribution machine interpretation problem. By the way, can we just all say that the kind of grammatic syntax of AI always has it's not this, it's that, and the other tells besides the M dash. And so just kind of going into this a little further, Jennifer, what have been some of the lessons learned, when you were on the front lines of trying to correct something like this?
That there's not one silver bullet that's going to solve it. Looking at a holistic approach, like Mike was saying, across multiple platforms, your owned content. I think one of the things that helped shift, in addition to the coverage and the social strategies that we were seeing with RealSense, definitely having the website in place and structured in a way that allows the machines, the platform, to quickly access and get to relevant content and then validate out to those other sources, and or get to the site from those sources and say, yes, there's a presence here, and it's deep and credible and has authority. All of these things need to be working together, and it's if somebody's saying this is a magic thing, just do these couple of things, you're going to get immediate results. Structuring in a way that the machines can get to the content. They're generally quite lazy. They kind of peter out after a little bit of time. So you need to make it easy. You need to attack from all sides and make sure that you're covering all of the best practices and pillars, and showing up consistently. I know that we're still struggling a little bit with the naming, Intel, RealSense, that sort of thing. There is some battling going on there right now. What we see with a lot of our clients is having to disambiguate the blurred lines between company names. So when you've got a company name that is shared by other companies, tech companies, maybe not specifically in your space, even companies that aren't exactly, or products that aren't exactly related to you, these machines or platforms can get confused. So providing the simplistic content exactly the way you want to say it. It might not be coming across as very sophisticated from a marketing perspective, but simply saying RealSense is a company that does X, Y, Z, and at this point in time exited very, very clearly, can help these machines clear up their confusion. Like you were saying, it was they were taking in content, they were misconstruing and sort of making false connections, and cleaning that up as simply as possible, making it as easy as possible for them is really where you're going to see the wins.
So Can I jump in for 1 second on that? Because I was actually looking at something as Jennifer was saying that, and I started doing, I pulled a Curtis, and I'm like, tell me why you think these things. I got 3 hallucinations in a row. So it's really important, like if the prompting is not exact, or if it allows room for inference, it's going to make stuff up. And it's kind of funny when Claude admits it, that it's made stuff up 3 times in a row. But it's really important to do this kind of stuff, like the hygiene of it, right? I've got to go in, I should be going in every day, and the team should be going in every day and just double checking that we're not seeing hallucinations, we're not seeing false data come back. And there's also the problem of it being, it's temporal. So I'm not sure when the training cutoff is, but it's probably like July, August of last year for most of the LLMs. As a result, like for me, that's especially painful because it hasn't really filtered its way back in yet. So that temporal nature of things is hard.
Timing, very, very important. And I mentioned this many times to clients, is that there's the core learning data that is available to the platforms, and then there's the real-time data that it spins out and grabs. And why SEO is still important in the mix here is that if it doesn't have the information, it will need to go out and gather and access real-time posts and indexed ranked content. The cutoffs play into that. So if you're a brand new company and don't have longevity and don't have content that exists in the core learning data that is largely sourced from platforms, again, Wikipedia, Reddit, media outlets, and more so even going forward because more contracts are getting put in place with with these outlets, then you have to look at the hygiene on the site. What other ways can you be showing up so that they can pull information in real time, because they won't have in that core learning data yet. What is your strategy to make sure that you're showing up in the outlets and platforms that do have contracts with the AI platforms and AI companies, and how are you structuring your content in a way that can be accessed real time until it is pulled into the core learning database.
So I've gotten a couple questions from our audience about Wikipedia, and they want to drill down into this a touch further. Mike, I know you brought that up, and Micheline, if you have some thoughts too, I think it'd be helpful because everyone wants to kind of hear more about that.
I can start because I think it's really funny. Hopefully you guys find it as amusing as I do. If anybody on the call, by the way, is an active editor on Wikipedia, I apologize. This is not meant to offend. But it was crazy trying to get edits to the site. We would cite sources, we'd write them in natural language, and it kept coming back as no. I got all this pushback from the folks that manage the pages, and actually, really, that speaks volumes to how Wikipedia is managed. Like, it's great because it prevents a lot of nonsense from getting pushed into Wikipedia. So that's great until it happens to you. So we went back and I decided, I'm like, you know what? I got to stop having this fight. I got to figure out the right way to do it. So I actually consulted the LLMs on the right way to write Wikipedia content to make sure that it would be accepted by the editors and the people that watch it. And I did that a couple times and it stuck. And I got progressively more aggressive about it to see if I could went from tweaking a sentence or two to writing an entire new page. And then ultimately the entire new page got accepted. So that was excellent. That was great. And that actually changed our page ranking. Just again, back to legacy SEO, it changed our page ranking from like page 3 to number 1, like overnight. It was excellent. That all being said, if you go to the Wikipedia page now, it will explicitly state on the top of the page, this appears to have been written by an LLM. And I haven't touched it because I'm just leaving it there. Nobody's going to Wikipedia to look at RealSense, but the LLMs and SEO are using Wikipedia as a primary source. So if you're dependent on Wikipedia to give a proper historical record of your company, be very careful, manage it the right way. For us, it wasn't that big of a deal how it shows up, just that it shows up. So that's why I still laugh about it, because I'm like, it's kind of embarrassing when people are like, hey, LLM wrote your page. I'm like, no, I told LLM to write my page.
That's funny. We actually, I learned something new from you as well, Mike. I didn't realize about Wikipedia. We focused on Reddit and those types of resources, and we saw a huge response, but it was very dedicated. We also have a kind of a technical person who is there all the time. And then we have our own social media folks as well, making sure that our product team are engaging as needed. So that played a big part in content creation while we're there and writing content and responding. So that played a big part for us. I know there's a question about just kind of how we started, or how someone gets started. And maybe if I can share just a little bit of just some really practical, very tactical things that helped us from the beginning. It's what Jennifer initially started was like structured data. So it was like, how do we get answer first content, which is writing our content within a Q&A format. Right, we're still in progress of doing this, as well as comparisons to our competitors, writing them in table format, step-by-step explanation. So those are a couple things that helped us there right away, as well as creating a glossary hub for LLM retrieval. So how do we, this took a long time. They wrote like 30 pages in a short amount of time and got them out, but we saw almost, I wouldn't say instant, but very quick results from there. So it was kind of short, factual articles, bulleted. So it's just the formatting also made a difference. I don't know if Jennifer could add to that part. And then as well as we thought just own content was also going to be important, but then going beyond own content, because we realized that actually our own content did very little for us. ThoughtSpot own content was almost like 13% of our citations, like 13 to 15%, where the third party were much more prominent, obviously. So peer reviews weren't as big for us. Earned media was, but it wasn't a big factor only.
Okay.
I can jump in if you wanted to hear a little bit more about the structured content. If you've been working at all in SEO or applying strategy, schema, making your content accessible again, tagging it properly, having that FAQ schema, having the article schema, it really helps the platforms understand what it's going to be accessing. If it's worth its time and effort to go through that content, and it's hungry for data, expert quotes, FAQs, but you need to let it know that that's what it's going to be getting from from the page that it's going to be accessing. So in your offsite articles, making sure that wherever you are showing up in that third party, whether it be profiles or coverage, that they're structuring things in the proper way with the schema, leading into content from best practices from a human skimming standpoint as well. Quick overview down into the deeper content, and then on your site, making sure that you have your organizational content, your official name, your date founded, all of that within the schema as well really helps solidify and boost the confidence of the platforms.
I have a viewer question. I feel very Andy Cohen by holding this up and saying, Bill in Sycamore wants to know, but are there learnings about what the response time and refresh rate is generally on GEO updates to its outputs?
Can I give something real quick on that one? Because I think it's hilarious. Again, in real time, apparently, according to Claude, it is telling me, where did this window go? This also explains your original question perfectly. RealSense became independent just a couple of months before my knowledge cutoff, so that information may be sparse or absent in my training data, causing me to fall back on outdated intel associations or hallucinations. So that is exactly to your point, right? The data that's getting ingested into the LLMs it sounds like a year out of date, which is okay. I mean, they can't do everything in real time. That's just an astonishing amount of data. But it's going to take a minute. So
yeah, it is. Micheline, Jennifer, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's dependent on, so yes, larger amounts of time and lag between, showing up in that cutoff, the core learning data, but ensuring that everything outside of that core learning data is consistent, relevant, and in multiple places, because if it can't find it, like Mike just pointed out, if it can't find it or feels that it's out of date, it goes out and sources real time, and will be able to reference that in real time. Now, it only stays in real time while you're in that session, while you're querying, and doesn't insert itself into the core learning data until there is an update. And you can find out the different cutoff times just by asking the platform. So 2021, ChatGPT, at the time that we were battling with it, I believe they pushed out another update recently, later in 2025. But each platform has a different cutoff date, and they're constantly rolling out updates. And that's part of the challenge of staying on top of GEO best practice and how they're shifting the weighting between what they're sourcing and citing within their responses as well, is that unlike the old order with SEO, where people mostly focused on Google and then a little bit on Bing when they had some leftover time, now it's across the board. All of these platforms have a high adoption, and multiple users are using multiple platforms because they know that they get different senses and different outputs from each of them, which are valuable. So there's just more to keep on top of and to keep in check with.
Now I'm getting this, right now, and practically speaking, what are the top 3 to 5 tactics that brands can adapt right away? Who wants to start with this one?
I think we covered a couple of it already. Like for me, and what Jennifer just said is having the structured data, right? The way you're naming, the way you're titling it, what shows up on your website. That would be one example of what we did initially. Then it's even short summaries, right? The way you write them, the table format, and when you do comparisons, step-by-step explanations help right away in terms of the structure. And then for us, it's just more around backlinking, right? Putting an effort into where we're going to show up. Because, for example, we just talked about it, right? Wikipedia is just a known third party. LinkedIn is another one. PR, top authoritative media sites. It's kind of so focusing on areas like that and just tackling it through one by one. I think those are the top 3 things that you can do right away that helped us, at least at ThoughtSpot.
Okay.
Similar thing with us, right? We've been super consistent about our messaging and our content ever since spin out. It's evolved a little bit, but it's been pretty consistent and stable for the past 6 months. I love what you're saying, though. In fact, we need to up our Reddit game, and that's something we've been planning. But hearing it from you, it just reinforces in my head. We got to do it quicker. Additionally, all the little tricks that are there, the earned media for us is really important, but the content is king. And just generating the conversations in a meaningful way to where they get elevated, that has a huge influence on the resulting LLMs.
Okay, I got a spicy question here. Spicy question. Is everyone ready for the spiciness? Okay, yes. All right.
Bring it.
All right. You were talking to Sam Altman right now. What would you tell him?
Faster updates.
Go ahead, Mike. What did you say?
Less hallucinations. If you don't know, say it. Super simple.
You took mine, so
Sorry.
Also faster updates. If you said hallucination was your second one.
And mine is share better. Share more, share better. Play in, let us know what's happening, so that we can, it's mutually beneficial. The reason why Google did it was because it encouraged people to change things and improve their own outputs, which of course, that virtuous cycle, Curtis, that we've talked about before. It's when you share, when we know what's going on, we can structure things better. We can create better content. We can feed into the systems better, and then we can measure better when you share what's happening within your platform, and we're all coming out the other side a lot better off than when you've got these closed systems and everybody's trying to reverse engineer and try to think about how do we go about doing this. So I think come into the community and share in the conversation. Or provide some tools so that companies and individuals can learn more about what's actually going on and what they're looking for.
I want to know why Sam can't provide. Sam, we're on a first name basis,
yes,
right?
Sam.
I just want to know why Sam can't provide a confidence rating for some of ChatGPT's answers. I mean, if ChatGPT hallucinates, it knows just how much it believes in this answer or not, and yet it presents it as if it's absolute gospel. And much of this discussion truly is about just how can you get around the hallucinations that you see in AI. And I think all the AI providers should give a confidence rating for their answers, because I think that would help us so much when we're making these decisions. Because anytime I'm looking up something on AI, I double or triple source it. That's because I'm a former journalist, and that's just my kind of professional deformity. But I think that that would be a huge service. And am I wrong there? Is that like naive of me to ask?
No, absolutely. My favorite phrase is double check your work.
Mhm.
I always say that in everything that I ask because it's always something's wrong with it. But on the third party part.
Yeah, my son quoted a stat he did the day that he read off of Gemini, and like that's just physically not possible. Give it a second thought. He went, "Oh yeah, you're right." And it was something about like the G-forces incurred in Formula One racing. I think, which is something simple. But I'm like, you'd be crushed and all of your bones would break. So that's clearly not the right answer. So double check your work. But yeah, no, like it, and just to take this down to the nerd knob level for a second, we build cameras that use AI to determine depth. And in cases where we don't know it, we say we don't know it. Now we actually have tools that we can employ, and other tools like us that can give you a confidence threshold of exactly what you're looking at and say, I'm like 80%, it's 4.387 meters away. So it's not impossible by any stretch. It's certainly technically feasible. And I wish they all would do it. And I kind of understand why they don't, because it would expose some fundamental shortcomings in the tools.
Exactly.
Well, if we want to quit our day jobs, we can all start a new AI engine company, and we could, have that level of confidence. But speaking of startups, I'm getting a question. Startups start from zero in terms of authority. How can they get on the GEO map? Does anyone have any thoughts for that one?
Yeah, it's a little bit what I was referring to is like you're definitely not going to be in the core learning data. You're brand new. But if you can follow the best practices around making sure that your own content, so your website, is having the detail and information about your offering. Micheline covered it a little bit. Have some comparison content around what your offering is compared to who your competitors are. What are the features and differences between the two, so that can all be sourced in one spot, and the engines will then know where to place you and what competitive set you are likely to be showing up with. Then look at your third, your third party or third platform presence. Get your socials in order, post regularly, make sure that you have profiles on places like Crunchbase or Dunstan Broadstreet and these other platforms, profile platforms. If you're further along and you have a G2 profile or a Trustpilot profile, for example, these are all things that will be checked against and content that can be pulled in when you're looking at sentiment and tone and reviews. And then look to your media strategy, because presence across these other platforms not only will be pulled in real time, but are more likely to be pulled into the core learning data, because it's these media platforms that have the contracts, the content contracts with the organizations like ChatGPT, like OpenAI, to get their content pulled into the core learning data when they do an update.
Now, we just had a question about Anthropic, and Anthropic had a code breach yesterday. So, I looked to the class. Do you have advice on how to optimize and how they should, be shown in competitive LLMs?
In comparison to Anthropic? Sorry, I'm just needing a little bit of
the question is, and I was trying to read it, quickly.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Had a code breach yesterday. What advice do you have for them to optimize how they are shown in competitive LLMs?
Oh, interesting. It looks like the breach, the reads of the reading that I've done about it. Clearly Anthropic needs to get their IP back, right? It's not okay that their IP got breached. But the only real commentary I've seen about it so far was just general commentary about how developers develop. And it was some jokes on Reddit about like the whatever Pokemon stuff popping up in the code. It's like, this is what we do when we're bored and we're stuck on a problem. We go write something else for a little while, and then sometimes it ends up in our code. So, but I didn't really see anything in there that exposed their core IP. And honestly, I'm not even sure if even that was exposed, that we as regular human beings would be able to decode, does that make Anthropic better than OpenAI? No idea.
Who are you calling regular? Who are you calling a human being? How dare
That would
you?
be this group. You are my friends, and therefore we're all normal people. I need to be associated with normal people to feel normal. That's how it goes.
Yeah, and Anthropic is not the only not the only one that has been compromised or breached. So OpenAI had a partner that, they quickly rectified the issue by disconnecting that vendor, but they were also breached. This is the reality of a digital world, and these platforms are not immune to it. And so following best practices around security and those sorts of things are always going to apply. Making sure there are some settings that you can put in within session, whether that information is held or shared with the platforms. Make sure that those are turned off. If you're not interested in having your queries and responses included in, eventually included in their core learning data, it's, check your settings, follow best practices as, from a security standpoint, which you should be doing across the board.
Okay, now I got a super tactical question here, and it's about the cadence of content. And we've talked a little bit about the different sort of content activations that any company should be doing. Do you guys have like a rule of thumb when it comes to cadence?
For me, it's constant. It's not just one. It's not even. It's a content strategy for the company, and then it just flows in from there. We do have dedicated, person to do our SEO as well as thinking about our GEO. So that ties in very nicely, but it's daily. I mean, like every week we look at what content's coming down the pipe and how we're doing it. So it's leveraging all of that from a content strategy, but the rest in terms of what we just talked about earlier, third-party links, how we show up on our website, that's very targeted and focused and strategic in nature. It's very intentional. And so we have like two parallel paths. One is very GEO focused, and the rest is a content strategy for the company.
Same with us. We as much content as possible, and we constantly take a look at it and say, should we be doing more of X, Y, or Z? We've recently made a decision to pivot on how we're doing content, more to be very directly suited to our audience, in addition to the thought leadership stuff that we're doing as well. So it's a double click in. It's hard to do when you're pushing out that much technical content is challenging, right, on a regular basis, but it's actually setting a bar for the team. So we're excited about it.
And I would always fall back on the rule that quality is far more important than quantity. So if you're finding that it's overwhelming to do a daily or weekly or what have you, that's okay. Make sure that you're putting stuff out as regularly as possible, but that it is good quality, reliable and sourceable content. Don't just publish for the sake of publishing. There was a point in time years ago when it was, oh yeah, if you were showing up, post daily. It's really shifted to quality, making sure that it is linked to other sources, that you have all of those best practices in place. And so if you can't do daily, you can't do weekly, do monthly. Do what works for you. Just make sure it's really good stuff.
I've just been given the 5-minute warning by our producer, so I will try to step lively. I think one of the questions that I just got that I wanted to turn to, though, is a little tug of war really between media coverage versus content. And there's been a lot of talk about how paid media, owned media, and earned media all kind of take different parts of the pie, and where this new Wild West of GEO prioritizes that. And so just from your vantage point here, what are you guys thinking in terms of the power dynamics of these different spheres?
For me, it's earned. Like it's more authentic. It's coming in. Own content is important too. Don't get me wrong, but for me, we see much more better results when it comes from earned.
Yep. Same for our English-speaking audiences and various European and even Latin American audiences. Earned is king. Different in China, right? It's a different animal completely. But for the vast majority of our markets, it's earned.
Yeah, and paid is largely, I mean, paid has a different place. It's largely not something that is considered high authority or largely considered in this space. I don't want to just qualify it completely. It's just a different. It's a different part of a strategy for awareness, and it sits in a different area. Earned, absolutely, because that's the credibility, that's the authority, and the verification that amps up the confidence that this information is correct, and therefore the likelihood that it's going to get included. And then owned, if you've got problems in your owned space, in your own content, structurally, out of date information, it's not going to bode well for you. So just making sure your house is clean and all of that is in order, that is going to play really, really well with the third party media presence and coverage that you'd be getting.
I've been seeing that when we are considering press releases, one of the things that we used to think about back in the old days was, well, who's going to write the story? And then we would think, well, should we even make it a press release? Does it even matter? And now with GEO, the thought is, well, AI is always going to read the story no matter what. And this is important. And even though the activation of paying for a press release to be put in the wires is a nominal cost between $500 to $1,000, nowadays it seems like it's a good investment to make, just because when we put out these press releases, even if no one covers it, there will be some traction in the generative world. And I was wondering, Mike, Micheline, if you were seeing that too.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, for us, it's always been that way too. It's, when we think of press releases, it's not about pickup all the time. There's a storytelling behind it. So even before GEO came around, that was always a strategy for us. It's looking at, who our audience is. It's our customers, it's our investors, it's our PR folks, so our journalists. So we've always thought that, and I think it's still very true, and even more, as you just said.
Yeah, I totally agree. We aim at different audiences depending on the release. Some audiences we're targeting specifically for investors. Some we're targeting specifically at a target demographic of customers. And then some we're targeting for broad market for leadership. They all have different elements to it, and it will have a different set of pickup. And sometimes no pickup is totally fine because I'm using it as a narrative to get on the wire, to point people to read about, because I have to have a conversation with it on a one-on-one basis versus scale. So I think they're all super valuable, which is why we err on the side of pushing interesting information out. And then we're very thoughtful about how we apply that information.
Lightning round, everyone. If you could give someone in the audience one thing to do this week, just one, what would that be? We have less than 2 minutes. Jennifer, what is it?
Review your third-party profiles, make sure that the information's accurate so you don't have any gotchas, wrong information coming in, leadership, founding date, all of those things. That's something that you can do really quick and get that cleaned up.
You were prepared for that answer. Mike, what do you got?
I was not. Double down on the sources where you know you're weak.
Okay. Micheline, what you got?
Address your website first. Fix your home, make sure it's all cleaned up and ready to go before you even do anything else. So start there.
Okay. Anything we missed as we are wrapping up this hour?
Well, this was fantastic.
It was fun. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
My mom agrees.
Always more to talk about. Yeah.
Okay, everyone. Before we wrap, if today's conversation made you want to go deeper, I want to tell you about something coming up. The AI Realize Executive Roundtable series is bringing together a small groups of executives each quarter for private facilitated sessions. The next session is focused on exactly what we discussed today: AI discoverability, GEO strategy, and how your brands show up in AI-generated answers. It's hybrid, in-person in San Francisco, and virtual for everyone else, and space is limited by design. If you are an executive adopting AI, not selling it, the registration link is in the chat. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.